What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? It's Matty Peveril with Marky D, my co-host as always on Steelers Touch Down Under Australia. Marky D, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm ready for the pizza podcast and what kind of draft toppings we're gonna draft for the best ingredients. I'm ready for it.
That's it, mate. That's it. So
today's
show we're looking at all things. We're looking at all things mock draft. Look, if you're new to the channel, Mark and I look to give you an Australian sort of take on everything Pittsburgh Steelers, NFL, and it's definitely not just like Aussie novelties. It's just two Aussies that love talking Steelers that have had a podcast and video channel. We're doing our own one now. We had it previously with Behind the Steel Curtain Network as well. I think they're the Steel Curtain Network. Now we're doing our own thing. We're doing our own channel. If you joined us from the BTSC days or the SCN days, thank you very much. But we're always looking to grow our audience with new people. So if you like the show, hit the like button. If you want to see more of us, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon to get the notifications and customize them too. So today, mock drafts. I love mock drafts. Got a reputation amongst the Steeler community that know me. I love doing trade backs. I love playing armchair GM. Mock drafts, the flavor of the month going into March and April. Market ahead of the draft. Mark and I thought, hey, let's close out February with a first mock draft for February, but a last mock draft for February at the same time.
I got a quick question for you. Do you think Philip Rivers ever did a mock draft with his family?
That's good. That's a good one.
Like, because he's got so many kids. Do you ever think he's just like, okay, you can have the youngest one. This one might go to college.
That's a funny one. Yeah, maybe. We're going to try and do two mock drafts.
Let's go. Okay.
There's basically three platforms that you can do a mock draft on. You can do Pro Football Network's mock draft. You can do the Draft War Network's mock draft, which is currently being refreshed. It's in a beta mode for premium members only at the moment. And you can do PFF's mock draft. And there are pluses and minuses to every mock draft, and you'll see that when we do it. Pro Football Network's the one I kind of like the most, particularly around the later rounds, but they do a big update after the combine. So there's a lot of scouting profiles that aren't up there right now. And a lot of the rankings will change. PFF do one that's heavily based on having on how the public, how every one of us respond to that mock draft, and that affects the grading for different players. You have to pay to do trades. Pro Football Network, you don't have to pay to do trades. I think you have to pay to do trades or be a premium member with the Draft Network as well, but I'm not too sure how their new mock draft platform is going to work yet. It's still beta testing. I'm not doing it. So we're going to do Pro Football Network first, and then which has some trades, and then we're going to do PFF as well, where you can initiate a trade, but it becomes pretty complex. We want to give you a pretty watertight, show and podcast on the audio side today. And if you do like listening to us on the audio side as well, you can find us at Steelers TDU on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as well. And we do know there's a good community out there that's starting to follow us on the audio side. So with that, Mark, let's get into the first mock draft with Pro Football Network. We'll see how we can get through. And if we get through both these quickly, maybe we do another one and see how we go, because sometimes it's really different in what's available. And to give context too, like Pro Football Network right now, sometimes Jalen Carter, who's meant to be a top, maybe the first overall pick, maybe a top 5 pick, he gets picked, at 14 sometimes or 16 in Pro Football Network. So that gives you an idea of how they haven't really updated it just yet. So let's get into it. So we are going to share the screen for all the listeners. All right, here we are.
That's a nice flag. Ooh, okay. All right.
Here we are. Right. So we are in the window now. We're going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're only going to pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to do 7 rounds. We'll do fast. We will recap maybe the early rounds on who was picked. But let's get going. Ready? Are we ready to let's get drafting?
Well, I'm ready to rock and roll to find out who these players are.
Here we go. So Miles Murphy taken first overall.
Who's that?
That's crazy. I can't believe that's been taken. All right. So the Steelers are on the board. Now we've received 2 trades. We'll consider them in a moment. But let's look back on. Actually, there's cool audio with this, but I don't want to update it. But actually, if you do this on your phone or whatever, if you've got your sound up, the trade offers will actually sound like a telephone calling you.
Yeah, right.
It kind of annoys my fiance when I'm doing a million mock drafts in April when she constantly hears my phone ringing. It's not my phone actually ringing. But anyway, so you got Miles Murphy picked overall. That's a bit of a strange one. But he is a good edge rusher out of Clemson. Then you've got Will Anderson going to the Texans, which that could definitely happen. Christian Gonzalez goes to the Cardinals, which is kind of crazy. They
Is
have
that pretty
struggled
high
at
though?
cornerback.
Is that high up there for 3 for a corner? Seems high.
I don't think it is when you think about Sauce Gardner. Christian Gonzalez could test off the tape at the combine, so that's not completely ridiculous. I think Miles Murphy first over Will Anderson's interesting, but then maybe this is starting to maybe the algorithm's starting to suggest that the Chicago Bears will trade back in the draft. Who knows? You've got Bryce Young there at Indianapolis, which is a guy they could want. Jalen Carter there for the Seahawks. They need help across their
There's
team.
no way. I know my mate Grid from the Detroit Lions syndicate. There's no way they're getting CJ Stroud at quarterback. They're going it's called mock draft, but they're sticking with Jared Goff. They're not going to get.
Yeah, I mean this could also be someone trades into that spot. This could be based on the players. But anyway, you got Anthony Richardson there to the Raiders. I think that's pretty high above Will Levis. Will Levis, I think Carolina would be happy with Will Levis there. Yeah, I think Atlanta need pass rush and cornerbacks. I don't know if they're going to pick a tackle straight away, but maybe they believe in Desmond Ridder more than all of us. Then you've got Quentin Johnston going to Philadelphia. I think that's an interesting pick for them. You got Peter Skoronski there at the Titans, which kind of makes sense. They need a tackle. He kind of fits what they need, versatility on the line. Addison goes to the Texans, which I've seen mocked quite a lot, but only when they pick Bryce Young at quarterback, because then they get the quarterback and they get the wide receiver to grow together for 5 years. Then you got Tyree Wilson. I think if the Seahawks landed him and Jalen Carter, wow, that changes their defense. That's pretty massive to land Tyree Wilson back there. Then you've got Cam Smith, who's kind of, for some people, the 3rd to the 5th best cornerback in the draft. For him to go there above some of the other cornerbacks, including Joey Porter, that's kind of interesting. And ahead of Devin Witherspoon, who like a lot of like Jalen Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks think he's the best cornerback in the draft. Jackson Smith and Jigba goes to Green Bay. I'm surprised they're picking there, given, I mean, if they're keeping Aaron Rodgers, maybe they pick him. If Aaron Rodgers isn't back, I think that's a pretty interesting pick for them to make. But we're here to pick for the Steelers. So we've got 2 minutes on the clock right now. So we've got till 9:15 to the show. Joey Porter Jr. is available, 12th ranked player. Bijan Robinson is available. Now, yeah, we got Najee Harris, but Bijan is a top 5 prospect in this draft in terms of his career potential. You got Broderick Jones, who's kind of my favorite at tackle for the Steelers. And you got Brian Breesy there out of Clemson, the defensive tackle. Other notable names are Keely Ringo, the cornerback, Trenton Simpson, the linebacker, and Brian Branch, who can play nickel cornerback and play safety. And then you get into other different prospects. So, Mark, it kind of comes down to, do we bring in Joey Porter Jr. or do we bring in a defensive tackle, or do we bring in the guy who I think is probably the best tackle for the Steelers in the draft? What do you kind of feel when I throw that to you?
Well, the way this mock is landed out, of course, all mocks are going to be different, right? But the way this one's landed out, I think the Steelers would go towards maybe bringing in a bloodline like Joey Porter Jr. That could be a possibility if they like the guy. I know some people are saying he's not the fastest guy. He's not the best cornerback out there. There are better corners than him, but he might not survive until 32, what I've been reading as well for Joey Porter. Now, I haven't watched too many highlights, just going off what I've been reading articles. But for me, if it's going to be a Steeler move, that could be a possibility that Joey Porter could be there. Now, the other blokes I don't know, but at the same time, I do know positions, and we need offensive help. So would that be Broderick Jones coming to that position? And then I think more or less we talked about, I think, a few weeks ago on the channel, like the needs were there were cornerback, offensive tackle, and edge and stuff like that, or even defensive tackle. So I think they got to go and get one of those positions. But this is a funny year this year, I think, for the Steelers. We kind of knew what was happening with all the hype around Harris and the hype around the quarterback. This year, I don't know about you. I don't know what direction they're going to go. If they're going to go offensive tackle, or if they're going to go defensive tackle, or do they listen to the crowd and say, we need a cornerback room, right? I'm kind of happy, to be very honest, with the offensive line. I know people are not a big fan of it because they're not big names, but they're playing well together. I think those 5 might start next year. But if you can improve on that, fantastic. If you can't, do you go and get a Porter? Do you go and get someone like that? And someone's, I think Ringo's pretty high up there too, right? So you get a guy like that. I don't know. I'm going to use your expertise for what you would do in this situation. No idea.
I think there's more depth at the cornerback position later on. I think if Broderick Jones is on the board, to me, he's the name out of all these names that I know I can pick today. He can start tomorrow, changes the offensive line for you, changes left tackle, I think, for you over Dan.
Will he help the run game with Najee Harris? If anything to do
big
with
time, big time.
Yeah,
he gets up in the run game. Sometimes he gets a little beat as he gets toward the second level, but he quickly fixes himself. He knocks guys over. I mean, I think they've got a scouting profile for him. Athleticism, 6'4", 315 pounds, near elite length, rotational freedom. He's got torque. He can hold defenders in place, uses length to channel awesome power. He's got great rotation through his hips, and he sends defenders to the turf. That's what I like.
To me, if I'm looking at what this offense is doing under Matt Canada, I want to see first downs and I want to see shorter fields, which he is known for, which is like getting to a 3rd and 2 or a second and 3, right? In those runs, I think giving Najee Harris that, I'm more leaning towards. I know we need cornerback stuff, but I think they have to go towards offensive tackle or offensive line play. They haven't done it in 10 years?
Yeah.
So sure, they need that. What is he going to be a good pass protector for Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, man, he's a lockdown man. You look at Georgia. Look at Stenson Bennett. He's not a top quarterback, in a prospect in this draft. And look what Georgia did 2 years in a row.
That's one bloke who's like 25, looks 45.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, let's lock in Broderick Jones. Let's run the card up for Broderick Jones. Dun. All right, we didn't even consider the trades. The Steelers have selected Broderick Jones.